You may be familiar with it or you may be not. That's the whole idea, just to understand the concept of God and the perfection that goes with it. So if you find this God is then watching and the poor girls noticing that someone looks like a human being is watching them having bath naked. So they started, because their clothes were on the shore, right? On the shore of the pond or on the side of the pond. But what has happened is that particular God has taken this clothes and he went up to a tree and is sitting there and watching. And they said, give our clothes back. He says, no, come out of the water, then I'll give it to you. Let's stop there, there don't have to be any graphic anymore. Would you say this is a description of a very perfect concept of God? Or is this a description of a pervert?
I would have to ask you, where did you get that thought from?
You see, it's not important at this very stage which book of God says this, right? We want to know, first of all, we're analyzing and understanding what it's saying. Is it describing God perfectly or not? So if a book said that, would you say this is in perfect, sync with the perfection of God? But yeah, it describes God perfectly. Like he's having an entertainment by watching naked women having a bath.
Instead of asking a question, I'll ask you one, if that's all right. Because
can you answer this first and then ask?
The thing is, I really don't see where you've got that thought from.
I think
so. I really don't see that it's not a part of the conversation.
I think you've misunderstood one point. Regardless of where it comes from, which book, first what we're doing is taking the concept that is presented and examining this concept on its own merit.
I'm not a native speaker, so I really don't get where you're coming from.
But you speaking English is quite good. If you,
so
what part? Sure. Excuse me.
So you believe?
Sorry. It's not quite good. Can I finish my point?
Sure.
Which part of my example isn't clear to you? I will explain to you in a very simple term.
All of it.
All of it. Then we talk to this lady here, Cecilia. Maybe you understand better because he doesn't understand anything I spoke. So, if you have a concept of God where he is having entertainment by watching naked women, do you think that is a good description of God?
I think what Tobias was asking was where is this story from?
You see, you're doing the same thing.
No,
if it came from, imagine that came from the Quran. Okay, for the sake of argument, let's say it came from the Quran. Would you say this book is from God? If I was reading that, if I were reading that, I would say that doesn't look like a perfect description of God. It looks like someone who's a pervert. Would you not say that? That's my point. You have to critically analyze the concept of God presented. Doesn't matter which book it's coming from. By the way, Cecilia, this is not in the Quran. It's in a book, it's in some Hindu books. So we've identified the source. It's some of the Hindu books, it describes God. Okay? So, let me give you another example because that's not shocking enough. Imagine God creates human beings, because that's what we expect. God creates human beings, he's the creator. He creates human beings, and at one point he gets angry with the human being and he wants to destroy them, but he only saves those who he wants, and he chooses certain people followed by the leader, saves them in a boat, and he does flood on the whole earth and drowns everyone else, and he kills everyone else. And then he makes a contract, a covenant, a contract that from now on God is not going to destroy mankind wholesale, and he gives a sign of a covenant, a sign of a contract, that he is going to place a rainbow in the sky, a rainbow. And when he's about to destroy mankind again, he looks at the cloud and he sees the rainbow. And the rainbow is going to remind who? If the rainbow reminds the people of the covenant, we don't have a problem with that, right? Because people can forget. But if that book said, when the God looks at the clouds and sees the rainbow, and the rainbow reminds him and God remembers of the covenant that he made not to destroy mankind again, and he doesn't destroy, what would you say about this God? The God who is all-knowledgeable, the God who doesn't forget, he gets reminded by a rainbow only when he looks at it. Is this a perfect description of God? Is this a description of God which tells you that it is a good, perfect, acceptable description of God who is all-knowledgeable, all-wise, unforgetful? Or is it a description of a weak, imperfect, unworthy of being God, someone who needs to be reminded by a rainbow? I would say it's the latter. That information is in the Christian and the Jewish scripture. So what would you say about that? Is this a good description of God?
You just said, I'm just going to pick a point you just spoke about. You said God just pick whoever they want, or whoever he wants, and the rest he will kill them or destroy them, yeah?
No, I'm saying, let me clarify. I say, suppose there is a book which says God chose his chosen people and he saved them only, and he killed the rest, the disbelievers. That book says so. But that wasn't my point. My point was about God needing to be reminded by a rainbow. Would you say that this is a good description of a perfect God?
I think you read about like wrong things and you're just talking about it.
Sorry?
First of all, I just want to say, you said God picked certain people that he's going to put to Jannah and the other will kill them and destroy them, yeah? You just said that, yeah? Then what did you say?
What I'm saying is...
I don't want to talk about the rainbow because it's just
listen.
things that doesn't make any sense. Because God doesn't need to be reminded.
Thank you. Khalas, you've made my point. That's the precise point. The other point is not talking about the Quran. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim and I'm not talking about the Quran.
He's not addressing Muslims.
I'm not talking about the Quran. The Quran doesn't talk about that. Right? It is a book which is called the Bible. In the book of Genesis, it talks about this. So now, you already said, maybe you're a bias because you're a Muslim. You can explain. Is this describing God in his perfection?
I don't really understand the situation that you're describing.
Does God need reminding by a rainbow? Does God need to be reminded by a rainbow?
I don't think
That's what you don't think, right? What if we read the Bible and it says that? Exactly it says that. Yes. You would say, can I have a look at your Bible? Do you have Genesis in there?
It does. I think his point is, does God need reminding not to do things by a rainbow? Is that a picture of a perfect, all-knowing God that you and I would normally say is God? Well, what he's saying is that portrayal of God is imperfect. It's not a great picture of God. It presents him as like a human being who needs to be reminded of stuff. And that's not a perfect picture of God. Is it? But that's his point. Do you see his point?
I'm not
Sorry, I can't even open up the pages. Do you mind? What do you think? Is this description of God acceptable to you?
I don't really see the point of that situation, because that's not the point of Christianity. I don't understand why.
What do you understand?
What about this is not clear. We're talking about God is being described having the need to be reminded by a rainbow.
Can I see that?
Jesus Christ has revealed God to us in a way.
It's God's promise to
Otherwise you can't know this God. God can be a figment of your imagination. But in Jesus Christ, God has revealed himself. God has appeared. God has come to us in the person of his beloved Son. God has visited this world.
Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, as for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the water of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God says, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds. Bow means rainbow, yeah? And it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, can you read that part? I will remember.
Yeah, it says he will remember, but it doesn't say he could forget it.
When he looks at the rainbow cloud, sees the rainbow, who remembers?
He remembers, but it doesn't say he forgets.
Remember, when he says,
No, but that's what it says. I remember.
listen,
He remembers.
let's
It doesn't say I can forget.
let's look at the text again.
Okay.
God has destroyed the works of the devil by Jesus Christ.
I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring the clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember. It's a conditional statement. It's a clause. When I bring the clouds and the rainbow is seen, I will remember. If I said that to you, exact same words. When I look at the rainbow, I will remember. Does that mean I knew it already? Does that mean I already know, even before seeing it? Not sure. Because I will remember means it comes to my mind now, the moment when I saw it.
I disagree.
I think my point is, why does God require a rainbow at all? Because if he's a perfect being with all knowledge, why this elaborate bit of theatre? What's the purpose of the rainbow according to Genesis? I'm asking you, what is the purpose of the rainbow? No, it doesn't. No, but I'm asking you, what is the purpose of the rainbow in the story? You don't know. The story says, I will place the rainbow in the sky so that when I see it, I will remember. So that's the purpose according to Genesis. So by the standard of perfection, God is not perfect here. He requires and he puts in place a rainbow to remind him. Now, whether or not he already has that knowledge and just is a bit forgetful, or he doesn't have it at all, whatever, it's not the point. He needs the rainbow to remind him. And that's a very human way that, like my grandfather, might need to be reminded. Oh, by the way, now, it's time for you to get up and whatever. He needs reminding. So it's not a very perfect picture of God at all. And that's one of the reasons why we regard the Torah as having been changed in Christ. Not the original Torah given to Moses. It has been in some way partially forgotten, changed, misinterpreted and altered, according to the Quran anyway. And I think that makes sense, because here we have a picture of God, a concept of God, which is not worthy of God. God is perfect. He's not someone like a grandfather who needs to be reminded, oh, it's time for you to get up and have your tea now. Oh yeah, I remember now, thank you. That's not the God that we worship. So,
well, God becomes someone, and Jacob wrestles with him, and God loses. Cecilia, does that make sense?
I have overcome the world. Jesus Christ has overcome the world. Jesus Christ has overcome.
It's the man who would never talk to me face to face about Christianity. He's happy to advise someone who is debating with me face to face about Christianity.
the Shaitan, they know that Jesus Christ
لأن الطرف علي.
They know that Jesus Christ has conquered them. And some of you foolish men, you don't even know that Jesus Christ has conquered
somebody fuck the work of the priest.
Excuse me, please.
destroyed the works of the devil. Jesus Christ has conquered sin, Satan, the devil, and death.
Okay.
Now, to return to what we're discussing, I want to share with you 3-4 lines, which is a whole chapter in the Quran, describing God. And I want to see what you have to say about this. What do you think?
This is how Islam, it's how the Quran conceives of God in his perfection. I think it's a wonderful description of God, actually.
Quran, this is chapter of Surah 112, called Al-Ikhlas. Say, He is Allah, the One. Allah, the eternal refuge, means who's independent. Everyone seeks His aid and support and dependent on Him. He neither begets nor is He born, nor is there to Him any equivalent. There is nothing like unto God. So God is one, unique, absolute, independent, not born, does not give birth. There is nothing like unto God. Does this concept of God resonate in your heart and mind? Or do you think, no?
We were under the power of sin. We were under the power of
Think about it. God who is one, only and unique. One and only. Independent, absolute, not dependent.
alive from the dead.
He is not born of anyone, neither does He produces any offspring or children. And there is nothing like unto God. Totally unique. God is unlike anything. This is what Quran describes God in one of this chapter, the chapter of purity. This is a chapter called the chapter of Ikhlas or purity, giving you a pure information, concept about who God is. God describes Himself here. So, if there are more than one God, you know that the whole universe will come to a ruin, it will be destroyed. Because each God will take some parts of it and so on with chaos and corruption. You cannot have more than one God in reality, because God is absolute. And if there are more than one God, they all will be absolute. You cannot have more than one absolute. Chaos will be the result. Just think for a moment. If you are in a car and there are two of you, independent drivers with all controls. You have a steering wheel, clutch, gear, brakes and everything. The person next to you has the same. You can steer the car to go anywhere you like. The other person can do the same thing anywhere that person likes. If you want to take the car to the north, you should be able to do that. If you want to drive the car this way, you should be able to do that because you are independent of the other driver. Let's say me and you are the drivers. We are sitting in our car with two independent steering wheels and controls. You are driving this way and I am going to drive that way. Yeah, two opposite ways. Which way is the car going to go? Which way is the car going to go? This way that you want to drive, or that way that I want to drive? Same car. Yeah, so you won't be able to drive to where you want to. So that means you are not really all powerful. You are not really powerful enough to do what you wanted to do. God is all powerful. If God wants to do something, it happens. So if God wants now rain to stop, rain should stop. But if there's another God which says rain to continue, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
I never said that there's one.
I am saying if there were more than one absolute God. In Christianity, there are three absolute gods. They work together as one family. Three absolute gods, but one family, not two families or three families, but one family of three absolute gods. To be God, you have to be absolute anyway. If you're not absolute, you're not God. Is the Father in Christianity God? For him to be God, he has to be absolute. Do you agree?
I believe there is one God.
Is that the Son? There's one God, and is that the Son, right? That is the Son, Jesus.
Big question here is...
Can you let the lady speak, sorry? Let's continue. Okay, carry on.
Big question here is who you're talking about, the Trinity, aren't you?
I'm talking about a concept where God is three and one.
Yeah, the concept of the Trinity, they call it that. So you've explained it many different ways. But the big question here is who is Jesus?
Is he absolute God?
The big question here is who is Jesus?
Yeah, is he absolute God is the question that I'm asking.
The first Gospel of John, the Gospel of John reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and that the Word was God. So the question is who is Jesus? He is the Word of God. He didn't speak the Word of God. He is the absolute Word of God.
Okay, that's not my question. Is he absolute God? Not absolute Word of God, but is he absolute God?
Would you say that what God speaks is God? Is as God as God is?
Okay. Is the love of God God?
What's the penalty?
So you're going at it.
Listen, remember, God speaks. God sees.
God says things are created.
Let's understand your question, right? The speech of God comes down into a man, and on earth becomes a human. The knowledge of God comes down into a woman. The love of God comes down and becomes an uncle. The anger of God becomes a brother. The jealousy of God becomes a sister.
Okay, that's how you see it. All right, I get what you see.
You get the point? Yeah. So is the love of God God?
You're talking about different things.
Different what? Attributes. Is the word of God, his speech, an attribute of him or not?
It's not an attribute, it's his word.
Is his word not his attribute?
I really don't get where you're going.
Okay, what is an attribute of God? Maybe it's difficult for you because English is not the first language. Okay. God speaks, right? God speaks.
Of course. Right. Otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Is the Torah and the Bible the word of God?
Inspired by the word, inspired by God. Yeah.
Or is it not the word of God? It's not only inspired.
Inspired by God.
So correct me. So the Bible, the Torah and the Injil are not the words of God, they're the inspired works of the word of God. Is that what you're saying?
Not really.
So,
but we can say this. I appreciate talking to you.
But I'm not.
I'm finished.
Oh, okay. So I'll continue with Cecilia. Okay, you can go. Not to worry. Cecilia.
Jesus Christ is the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world.
Okay. Anyway, let's end this. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I can see it's very difficult for you to reflect on, but take these points and deeply reflect in your own time, in your own time, in your own convenience, and think about it. Is God described in your belief perfectly, as he should be? Or is God described in the Quran, as I've given you a chapter called Ikhlas, in his perfection? Which concept of God is worthy of our worship? Who should we worship? The one who needs to be reminded of a rainbow, or the one who doesn't forget anything at all? The one who is unknowledgeable? Who should we worship? The one who says he has no children, no fathers, he's independent, or the one who has a child?
Jesus Christ has the keys of Hades.
Think about this. Reflect on it. The Quran presents the same message as my brother was saying earlier on of all the previous prophets. No differences in this teaching about God. That God is one and only, absolute, almighty, all-powerful, unique, nothing like God. He is the one worthy of worship, and nothing else is worthy of worship. the only being who is worthy of worship is the one who is perfect.
And the sea gave
Anything that is
up its
imperfect, like Olumba over there,
and death
not
and
worthy of worship.
Hades
That
delivered
bicycle is not
death,
worthy of worship.
which were in the
That tripod is not
they were
worthy of
judged.
worship. Your bag is not worthy of worship.
Every man
You are not
judged
worthy of worship.
according as his work.
Yeah?
shall
Only
be.
God is worthy
They
of worship.
worship Jesus
The God of
Christ. They
Abraham,
worship Jesus
Jacob,
Christ.
Solomon,
And he never
Moses,
turned away
Noah,
worship.
Jesus, and
He
Muhammad.
accepted
Peace be upon them all.
worship
God of Jesus,
men.
yes.
He accepted
That's why I spoke to you about John 17:3,
Thomas. He
where
accepted
Jesus identifies
worship
who the
of
only
his
true God
disciples.
is.
Because Jesus
From his
Christ
own
is
mouth.
the God-man.
He
He
says,
is God.
Him.
manifested
He is the only
in
true
flesh.
God. And
He is
Jesus has
God
been sent
revealed
by
in our
him.
humanity. And when they
So who should you worship? The
Jesus
one who is
Christ,
sent
he accepted
or the one who
their worship.
sends him?
They worshipped him after he
Should we
spoke.
worship Moses, the prophet, or God who sent Moses? Should we worship Abraham, the prophet, or God who sent Abraham? Should we worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or God who sent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
And they
Worship God of all those
They
prophets.
worshipped him
Worship God of
because he
Jesus.
controlled
That is the message
the
of Islam.
weather. Only
And
God
when you
controls the weather.
read the
Jesus
Quran,
Christ
you will see that
controlled
this
the weather. Jesus
Quran
Christ
gives
had
you
authority
this message of
over
Islam
evil
that you were
spirits.
searching
That's
for.
why they worshipped him.
You may not
Even
have heard of
the
it,
even
but
the evil
this is the
spirits
message that
said,
you were searching,
"What
you're
have
looking
we
for.
to do
The
with
message
thee,
that
Jesus,
resonates in your
Son of
heart
the
and your
Most High
mind,
God?
and you are
We know thee,
happy and
who
comfortable
thou
and
art,
tranquil
the
with
Holy
it.
One of
Because
God,
truth
that
must
demons knew
be
who Jesus
something that
Christ was.
your heart should be
And they
comfortable
worshipped
with.
him.
Comfortable
Demons
with. Imagine
said,
someone worships your
"Worship
shoe.
Jesus Christ." All the
Would you be
fallen
comfortable with that? Like,
Worship
that's God
Jesus
Almighty?
Christ.
You will say,
All the
no,
fallen angels,
no.
they
So what we are
worship
saying,
him.
my brothers and sisters, right?
Jesus
What we are
Christ
saying is this.
is to be praised
You should
from the rising
reflect
of the
on the
sun
Quran,
unto the going
read
down thereof.
the life
The Lord's
and the
name
story and the
is
teaching
to
of
be
Prophet
praised.
Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
And
wasallam,
Jesus Christ
and then you will come to know that he is the final messenger of the God that you already have some knowledge about.
Muhammad
So I leave it to
is
that.
Satan's prophet.
Jesus Christ.
Stop your blasphemy.
Look
Your
at-
religion is
Jesus
anti-Christ.
Receive the worship.
Islam is anti-Christ in the Bible. And John,
we say?
you are doing the devil's work. And we will rebuke you and continue showing that Muhammad is a prophet of Satan.
He accepted their worship.
That is the level of people's lawlessness when they discuss about religion.
Accept praise.
Do reflect, take care.
An angel.
May God guide us all.
Revelation, the angel said, "Why are you worshipping me? Don't worship me, worship God." And Jesus Christ accepted worship because he's God, the God-man. God manifest in the flesh. God revealed in our humanity. Those of you who don't believe in it,
people never
you've
debate,
never
never
known
discuss,
it,
they bark
you've
at you,
never
they like
tasted
dogs, they
and
just bark.
see that the Lord is good. That's why you cannot worship him, because you only see him as a man.